In the race to build the future of technology, companies spend billions protecting their own networks. But what happens when the attack doesn't target the tech giant itself? What happens when attackers go after the company behind the company? In June 2026, a ransomware group claimed it had obtained more than 200,000 files from one of Apple's most important suppliers. Files allegedly connected not only to Apple, but also Tesla, TSMC, and Qualcomm. The incident triggered forensic investigations, emergency security measures, and direct involvement from Apple's security teams. And it exposed a growing cybersecurity problem that could define the next decade of supply chain security. Because this story isn't really about Tata Electronics. It's about why every organization is now only as secure as its weakest supplier. Welcome to the Encryption Edge. Today we're breaking down the cyber attack that allegedly exposed sensitive files from one of Apple's most important manufacturing partners and what this incident teaches us about modern supply chain security. To understand why this incident matters, we first need to understand Tata Electronics. Just a few years ago, most iPhones were overwhelmingly associated with manufacturing in China. Today, that picture is changing. India has become a critical part of Apple's diversification strategy. At the center of that strategy sits Tata Electronics. The company manufactures iPhone components, supports Apple's growing operations in India, and plays a major role in one of the most important manufacturing transitions happening in the technology industry. According to counterpoint research data cited by Reuters, India is expected to produce approximately 26% of the world's iPhones in 2026, compared to just 6% 4 years earlier. Then came the incident. Researchers discovered that the ransomware group known as WorldLeaks had published more than 200,000 files on the dark web, claiming they originated from Tata Electronics. The alleged leak totaled more than 630 gigabytes of data. Tata confirmed that it had experienced a cybersecurity incident, but what investigators would later uncover raised far bigger questions. The first report suggested the leaked files included documents connected to Apple and Tesla. That alone would have been significant. But further analysis reportedly identified documents allegedly linked to additional companies inside the technology supply chain. Among the leaked materials were purported documents associated with TSMC and Qualcomm, companies whose technologies are deeply connected to modern semiconductor manufacturing and iPhone production. Reuters reviewed samples that allegedly included engineering documents, component information, reliability testing details, design specifications, and confidential manufacturing materials. However, Reuters noted it could not independently verify the authenticity of all leaked documents. At this point, the story became bigger than a ransomware incident. The question was no longer, was Tata breached? The question became, how much information can be exposed when a critical supplier gets compromised? Because attackers were no longer targeting a single company. They were targeting an ecosystem. Many viewers immediately assume that incidents like this begin with elite hackers exploiting sophisticated zero-day vulnerabilities. Sometimes they do, but supply chain attacks are often much simpler. Attackers typically focus on 4 objectives: gain initial access, escalate privileges, move laterally, exfiltrate valuable data. At the time of reporting, investigators had not publicly disclosed exactly how attackers gained access. However, the defensive response provides important clues about the risks organizations worry about after a breach. Following the incident, Tata reportedly restricted remote access to sensitive internal systems, limited access to procurement-related tools, tightened authentication controls, and launched a forensic investigation with the help of an external consultant. These actions suggest an organization focused on reducing attack surface, limiting privileged access, and preventing unauthorized movement through critical business systems. For cybersecurity professionals, this is a familiar pattern. When defenders don't yet know the full scope of an intrusion, the first priority becomes containment. Reduce access, limit exposure, preserve evidence. investigate everything. The most interesting part of this story isn't the ransomware group, it's Tata's response. Because the response reveals something many organizations are quietly learning. Traditional security assumptions are changing. According to Reuters reporting, Tata hardened access controls across facilities and offices. Remote access to sensitive systems became restricted to select personnel. Network access from outside company facilities became more tightly controlled. A forensic investigation was launched. Government authorities were informed. Clients were informed. And Apple reportedly began working closely with Tata on both near-term and long-term security measures. That is the turning point, not because of what attackers did, but because of what defenders learned. The breach transformed cybersecurity from an IT problem into a supply chain risk issue. This incident highlights one of the most important trends in cybersecurity today: the rise of supply chain targeting. Historically, organizations focused on protecting their own infrastructure. Today, attackers increasingly focus on trusted relationships. Why spend months attacking a technology giant directly when a supplier may provide a more practical route to valuable information? The most concerning aspect of this incident is not the reported 200,000 files. It's the concentration of value. One supplier, multiple global technology companies, potentially sensitive engineering information, shared manufacturing processes, connected business operations. For SOC teams, this changes the threat model. Your organization's risk is no longer limited to assets you own. It extends to vendors, partners, contractors, manufacturers, cloud providers, and every company that touches your data. This is why third-party risk management is rapidly becoming one of the most important disciplines in modern cybersecurity. The future attacker doesn't always attack the fortress. They attack the supply chain feeding the fortress. For individuals, understand that your personal data often travels through multiple organizations before reaching a service provider. Your security depends on more than your own actions. For businesses, treat suppliers as extensions of your security perimeter. Assess vendor security continuously, not annually. For SOC teams, monitor supplier-related intelligence. Track third-party incidents. Develop response playbooks for vendor compromise scenarios. For security engineers, implement zero-trust principles. Reduce unnecessary privileged access. Continuously validate authentication and authorization pathways. Assume compromise and design accordingly. This incident arrives during a major shift in global manufacturing. As technology companies diversify production across regions, supply chains become larger. More suppliers, more partners, more systems, more complexity, and unfortunately, more opportunities for attackers. The next generation of cyber attacks will increasingly target ecosystems rather than individual organizations. Expect to see more supplier-focused intrusions, more ransomware operations targeting manufacturing environments, greater regulatory scrutiny, stronger vendor security requirements, and deeper collaboration between customers and suppliers during incident response. The organizations that thrive will be those that understand cybersecurity is no longer confined within company walls. The Tata Electronics incident may ultimately be remembered for something much bigger than leaked files. It revealed a truth that cybersecurity professionals have been warning about for years. Modern technology is built on interconnected trust, and trust creates dependency. The same supply chains that make global innovation possible can also become pathways for cyber risk. The lesson isn't that one company was targeted. The lesson is that every connected organization shares part of the same attack surface. If you value deep cybersecurity investigations, threat intelligence analysis, supply chain attack breakdowns, and real-world lessons for defenders, subscribe to the Encryption Edge. Because understanding how attacks happen is the first step towards stopping the next one. And in cybersecurity, the next incident is never as far away as it seems.